So here's the first question. Um, are dreams another reality of another life?
They can be. Again, many things, as we have explained, happen when you dream. You can be in spirit tapping into parallel realities, being aware of the connections that you have in life energetically to other lives, counterpart selves, in other time frames, in other civilizations. And when you wake up, again, your physical mind will do the best it can to represent the experience in the symbols that it has at its disposal, to reconstruct a dream in a way that is at least partially representative of what you were doing. So, yes, that can happen.
Okay, and so is the dream state an actual reality?
Yes.
And the question goes on to say, since all that is now, isn't the dream state our access to other points of view of the infinite? Is the cast of characters in our dreams real in their dimension or density?
They can be. Again, it depends on the reason for the creation of the dream. They can be symbolic projections of your own consciousness, or they can be representative of actual encounters with actual beings. Again, your physical mind doing its best to create the representation that most closely resembles the experience that you had in the spirit state, as you say, out of body, in the astral realm. So, yes, it's a real state. The idea of the dream, as most people on your planet understand a dream, is simply the, shall we say, representation, symbolic representation of an experience that happened in a real dimension of non-physicality.
Okay. And who or what actually sets up the dreams for us? Is there a dream director of some sorts? Why do humans regard dreams as being more profound than daydreams or even day-to-day thoughts?
You are the director of your dreams. Now, you may have assistance from spirit guides or from other spirit beings who's in a position to help you assess what it is you need to look at, what it is you need to experience, but you make the decisions as to what you're going to experience, what you're going to look at, what you're going to explore and examine. So you are the director. The idea is that non-physicality is your natural state and therefore, in a sense, more real than the idea of physical reality. Physical reality is another type of dream that you're having. So you know that physical reality is your projection, your illusion, your construction, and therefore, in non-physical reality, you know that that's more truly your real state, and that's why non-physicality seems more real than physical reality when you come from that perspective of understanding.
Here's another question. I don't seem to dream in color like others. For example, when I dream and I see a tree, I know it's green, but I don't see it in the traditional sense. I just know the trees are green. What is the meaning of this? Is this because I'm aware of it being a different frequency, or do others seem to say they see colors in their dreams just like they do with their physical eyes, but I just don't seem to see that?
Well, again, this can be for a variety of reasons depending upon why it's being created that way. Again, we have to take this on a case-by-case basis. But sometimes when you're exploring the idea of the expansion of consciousness and you start to realize that physical reality isn't real, you may not need to see the colors because you're simply attempting to see the projection itself, the electromagnetic energy itself that you are using to create the reflective objects that you call physical reality. So you may not at this point need to see the colors. They may, in a sense, be a distraction for you in terms of what it is you feel you need to see about physical reality. It can simply give you the props, the neutral props, without infusing them with any kind of solidity which color would represent. So you may simply be examining the neutrality of physical reality as a projection of your consciousness, created out of the electromagnetic energy, the electromagnetheric energy, and therefore not necessarily need to see the colors at this moment, so you can focus, in a sense, on the objects themselves. People in your physical reality who are colorblind have advantages in certain ways by being able to see things in your reality that might confuse a person who can see color, because the color would be a distraction, whereas colorblind people can see the objects that might be otherwise hidden from people who can see color. So you might be using the same technique to make sure you see what you need to see without being distracted by the introduction of color.
What about the opposite, where there are some people who see colors enhanced in dreams, where the concentration of color is very intense, particularly in a lucid dream situation?
That's usually the result of actually seeing the spirit reality, in which many things that you take for granted in physical reality are actually much stronger. There are even colors in the spirit reality you don't even have or are not capable of even seeing in physical reality. In a sense, no matter how vivid physical reality may seem, it is a pale comparison to the things that exist in the higher spiritual realms in terms of the use of light or the perception of light and color.
Well, I know like the difference in coloration, saturation between the mainland and Hawaii is very intense difference.
Yes.
And then some people seeing Essassani have also said that the color saturation is just amazing and
Yes.
way beyond even what you would experience here in Hawaii.
Because again, it's closer to spirit vibrationally, and therefore the colors are much more powerful.
Very lovely.
Yes.
Um, what does it mean when two people have the same dream at the same time? This person is saying something about shared dreams where they have an experience where they meet someone in a dream and then they wake up, and then both individuals are able to sort of recount the details of the dream as if they were together in it.
Well, it's not as if. Most likely they were together in another reality, sharing a shared experience and remembering that when they wake up in the physical world. It's not that uncommon. The idea involves a telepathic connection, vibrational mirroring, so they can, in spirit, in the astral realm or wherever, share an experience that they will remember as a shared experience in much the same way that you choose to do things with your friends in physical reality and have similar memories of the same event. It's not that unusual.
What are other purposes for that? Like, because obviously when someone experiences that, it feels very mystical and like, oh my gosh, how could that happen? You know?
Well, again, only because you make the spirit world something more mysterious than the physical reality. The idea, again, is it's no more uncommon than you deciding to get together with a friend to do something in the physical world. There are things that many people who are friends and members of soul families on the spirit level choose to do together, to explore things together, to share experiences together for a variety of reasons. So again, you're only making the spirit world seem mysterious. But many things happen in the spirit world that happen in physical reality, just in a slightly different way.
Okay. It's said that we're doing work while dreaming. What are we working on? And also, does the higher self like to communicate with us, or why does the higher self like to communicate with us with such weird dreams and symbols that often we don't know what they mean?
All right, well, again, as we said, you're doing many things while you are asleep. You are attending classes, you're exploring different realities, you may be planning elements of your life, you may be adjusting elements of your life, you may be conferring with spirit guides or what used to be called elders in the councils that exist in the spirit realm to aid and assist and guide spirits in what they may choose to experience. So you're doing many different kinds of things. And again, the idea is that you have quite a lot of freedom in the spirit reality to look at things from a higher perspective. But remember that, in a sense, you become the higher mind, more or less, when you are in spirit. And then when you choose to awaken in physical reality, you usually leave a percentage of yourself behind in spirit, the non-physical self, that becomes the higher mind. So the idea is that when you wake up, sometimes the messages or the experiences simply have no way of being literally translated into physical terms. And that's why dreams may seem very strange, because again, the physical mind is limited in the number of symbols and the kind of symbols it can use to represent what happened in another dimensional plane, and things don't always equate one to one from the spirit world to the physical world in terms of the experiences. But the physical mind does its best. Things may seem confusing because they don't seem to make sense, but on another level, it was perfectly sensible when you had the experience. You don't really have to worry about the idea of the discrepancy between the physical and non-physical reality. You will have absorbed what you needed to absorb of the experience in a way that will work for you. Whether your physical mind can make sense out of it or not isn't always that important.
So it's kind of like a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to remember my dreams and I have to interpret them, etc. In actuality, you're doing what you need to do when you're having the dream. And then sometimes it can be of value to translate them or understand them if it
Yes.
stays residually with you when you wake up in the morning.
Oh,
But
yes.
in general, it's pretty self-sufficient process for your consciousness.
Yes, the things that you need to remember, the things you need to reflect on, you will most likely remember. Now, if you are creating the idea of fear-based beliefs within your physical mind, they can sometimes act as obstructions to the clear interpretation of what you remember as an experience on the higher levels. And so that might be a reason to remember the strangeness of the dream, to work out what the strangeness is all about. It can, again, be for a variety of reasons. Simple misinterpretation of things happening in another dimension, or it can actually be obstruction of the meaning of things because of beliefs within you that force you to look at those beliefs, get you to really look at them so you can make sense out of what happened, so you can gain clarity about the symbols that are represented by the dream. But again, you have to take this on a case-by-case, person-by-person basis as to the reason for why it might be important for them to examine and interpret a dream, as opposed to when it might not be that important.
Yes, because there certainly are lots of books about symbols in dreams and what they
Yes.
mean, but actually it can be your own symbols can be quite different from that
They
and the
can.
meanings that show up in books.
They can, but there are some generalities that are true for most of you in the collective consensus consciousness. So sometimes that will work just fine, but yes, you may always make slight adjustments or even have completely different symbols to represent the same concept. So again, it comes down to really knowing yourself and investigating yourself clearly so that you understand your own language on that level as well.
That sounds like an exciting project, actually, just keeping track of your dream symbols and starting to eke out what they mean.
Yes.
Many people have dreams like of being chased or trying to run and being in molasses or not being able to make a phone call because
Yes.
they, you know, those kinds of dreams.
Well, some of them are relatively obvious in the sense that you may feel mired down, you may feel that communication is not forthcoming. Many of those things are relatively obvious as a simple symbol. But again, it depends upon what the person is processing, what it is they're experiencing.
And recurring dreams, where some people have the same dream from childhood over and over again.
Yes.
Um,
Can be
again,
can be the
what would
result of something that is being attempted to be delivered in communication to them or something that they have fixated on. Again, it can be different things. But if it happens over and over again, obviously it is something to pay attention to figure out whether it is something you fixated on or whether there is a message attempting to get through from a higher level to you, or whether you are simply playing a game with yourself to remind yourself to focus on some particular thing when you stray too far. This technique can be used for a variety of reasons. Again, you have to know yourself to know in which way you might be using the idea of recurring dreams. It can also be an understanding of probabilities that may be more likely to occur than others, and reminding yourself that this has been set up to be inevitable. So again, it depends on how you're relating to the idea of a recurring dream and what purpose it serves in your life, and how you're actually using it to inform yourself of something that might be important.
So, for example, a person who can't remember the specifics of a dream, but it has a feeling to it. And
Yes.
in fact, it's not the first time they've had the dream. They just get that feeling again and again. Is what would be a good technique for deciphering the feeling?
All right, well, first and foremost, don't get up right away. When you wake from a dream, stay there for at least 5 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer, and see if more details of the dream come back to you to make itself more clear to you. That would be the first thing to do. If you still only wake up and still get up with only a feeling, then again, you have to examine the belief system that would be creating that kind of a feeling and find out what that belief is.
Yes, because one person was asking, like, why do dreams fade away? Why do I have to go through this process of trying to remember the dream when I woke up in the morning, or wake up?
Yes, well, again, it's not about trying to remember, it's about allowing yourself to recall. But if you get up right away, then it can fade. Because again, you have to get on about the business of your physical life. You again, no matter what, will have absorbed the information of the dream, and it might come out later in some circumstance or situation where you suddenly realize you have the information you need to handle whatever is going on, and that information may have been downloaded to you in a dream, and you simply didn't know that until the situation required you to recall that or exhibit that ability that you gave yourself from the dream state. So it's not about trying to remember. If you don't remember, then just get on with your life. You still have the information in you somewhere. But again, if you stay in the bed and you stay calm and relaxed and ponder the idea of whatever it is you do remember, whether it's a feeling or an image or what have you of the dream, a lot of times more of the details will come back and it might clarify itself in that moment. So don't be in a rush to get up. Just stay within that floating experience and let whatever needs to come back to you come back as much as it possibly can. If nothing else comes back after 5 or 10 minutes, then fine, get up and be about your day.
And what about the idea of programming yourself to remember your dreams when you wake up? Is
You can do that. You can do that.
that's
It's the same technique that many people use when they say, I'm going to get up at 9 o'clock. And their inner clock goes, bing, there you are, 9 o'clock. So many people who have the ability to program other things like that in their mind, in their brain, can also use it to program the idea of remembering their dreams. But again, more often than not, it will require that you stay in a state of repose to make it easier so that you don't get distracted by the physical reality around you by getting engaged with it too strongly right away.
um well, I guess we covered this, the idea of a strategy to interpret symbols and events in dreams.
Yes, we
Is
covered.
there anything else we can add to that? Okay.
Not at the moment.
All right. And how can I start lucid dreaming? Is there an easy and efficient process, meditation or prayer to ask for lucid dreaming? And how can I teach my physical mind not to be afraid of lucid dreaming?
Well, first, of course, in asking the question that way, the person would have to understand what they are afraid about lucid dreaming. And once they allow themselves to clarify what the fear-based belief is, what they think will happen if they go into lucid dreaming, that certainly would be a big step toward being capable of doing it, is getting the fear-based belief out of the way. Now, there are many techniques that exist on your planet for such things, and different ones will work differently for different people. We will have to leave it up to synchronicity to attract the working methodology that would be best for you. You can find it in some books, you can find other people who teach such things. But again, the first and foremost issue is you have to find out why you would be afraid to lucidly dream.
Any ideas why people would be afraid of lucid dreaming?
Well, they might think they're going to lose connection with physical reality and never come back. They might think that they might actually choose to never come back because what they've heard about the idea of the spirit reality and waking up in the dream is so much more wonderful than physical reality. So they have to be honest within themselves about the belief systems they have about their connection and relationship to physical reality so that they also know that it's a choice that can be made, but that they won't necessarily make it and leave everyone behind. So there may be a vast array of reasons why they are afraid to lucidly dream.
This person wants to know why it's hard to maintain a lucid dream. In the past, they found that when they get excited or nervous about it and have trouble guiding their focus, they wind up waking up within a minute or two and
Yes.
becoming lucid.
Yes, well, again, anything that is outside the vibration, the pure vibration of staying in that state, is going to bring you back to physical reality focus. And again, the idea is you do have a physical life to lead, you do have a physical life to live, and therefore you're not necessarily going to stay in the lucid dream state that long because you made an agreement and chose a theme where you need to focus in physical reality dream. And the more you become lucid in physical reality, again, the easier it will be to become lucid in the dream state as well. So the primary purpose of having a physical life is to know yourself, to be yourself, and to become more conscious and more aware and more lucid in the physical dream. Then that can leak into the dream on the other side, and vice versa. But remember that in the dream state, often many people are setting up in the physical world what it is they choose and need to experience, and therefore they're focused on that as being, at the moment at least, more important than becoming lucid in the way that you're talking about it in the dream state.
It seems like during lucidity, we have more abilities. Like some people can fly. Some people notice that there's almost an etheric glow to the environment that they're in.
Well, that's because they're in an etheric reality. And as we said, glows and lights and colors are different there.
Okay. So is lucid dreaming an important step in being able to experience physical reality as more of a dream and also of connecting with other dimensions and things like that?
It can be, but it depends upon the theme that was chosen by the person. It's not necessarily more important.
So it's a permission slip that if you feel attracted to it, that would be something to delve into more closely.
Yes, it's not
And
everyone's
expand
path.
it.
Yes, it's not everyone's path.
Just for our audience, there is a session on lucid dreaming that you did a number of years ago, and if you check with the chat, they can give you more information.
That can help if it works for some people, yes. But again, it depends on the path the person has chosen. It's in some ways more important to become more lucid in the physical dream.
So when we are more lucid in the physical dream, does it start to look more like a lucid dream?
Yes. And that's
And
when you can also be more lucid in the dream state, because you have broken down the barriers that you have in your mind about what physical reality is. And the idea of the physical dream and the non-physical dream start to blend together. You lose a sense of difference and separation, at least to a degree, that allows you to become lucid throughout the entire spectrum of your consciousness, both physical and non-physical. So becoming more lucid in physical reality and seeing physical reality as a dream and experiencing the malleability of space and time in physical terms can actually give you more experience in the lucid spectrum between physical and non-physical reality. It can cause less of a perspective of separation.
so compartmentalization is also an aspect of lucid dreaming, like the less you have to compartmentalize because it hasn't been dealt with, fearful, negative belief, things like that, the more challenging it would be to lucid dream or some version of that. And it's reflected in physical reality also, that
Yes.
you perceive more and you feel more like you're in a lucid dream when you have broken down the compartmentalization. Is that
In general, for most, yes. There is going to always be exceptions to any idea you may propose, because different people will do things in very different ways. But in general, yes, that's true.
And does time actually have a difference? For example, that individual was saying, oh, it happens so fast and then I'm out of it. Is it possible that they're actually in the lucid dream for a really long time and you just don't know it?
Yes, relatively speaking, time is very different in the higher states. It's not what you experience in physical reality.
And
What may seem to be 5 minutes in physical reality could actually be experienced as 5 years in the non-physical state.
And in lucid dreaming, is that a way that you can connect with hybrid children and other beings in other
I think you know
dimensions?
the answer to that is yes.
I guess so. Just confirming.
All right.
Okay, now prophetic dreams are also a big question. Some people have prophetic dreams that happen years ago, and then they see it coming to fruition now.
Yes.
Other times, there's one person expressed a concern that the things that they were shown in this prophetic dream are actually connections they're making to other realities of other people that are having those experiences. And what would be the purpose of being shown something that's happening to somebody else like that?
Well, one purpose would be your reality contains the probability of what's happening in this other parallel reality, but you get to decide whether or not to keep the energy going in that direction or to change it and not necessarily let that play out in your physical parallel world. Wouldn't that be of benefit to many people to examine what's going on in other parallel realities so that they can pick and choose what it is they prefer to experience in their own?
So, in essence, most of us are going through the theme here of transmuting darkness into light.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, any dream or lucid dream or prophetic dream that you have can be brought more to earth, I guess, in the sense of recognizing it's about transmuting darkness into light. Is that?
It's a simple way of looking at it, but it can work that way. And again, always remember that it's not about a prediction of the future, it's about a sensing of the energy that exists right now, and therefore being given an indication of where that energy might lead and how it might manifest if it doesn't change. So again, you get to decide whether to keep the energy going in that direction or to change it.
So, if they see a prophetic catastrophe in some way and they're feeling very fearful about what they've seen, what would be the way to process through something like that?
Well, first of all, not be fearful. Understand you're being shown a probable reality, not an inevitable reality, unless you're also sensing that there is so much momentum and energy behind it that it's unlikely to change. Nevertheless, it doesn't serve anyone for you to have a fear reaction of those things. The idea is that there still can be positive actions taken to either mitigate it to some degree, to let people know what the probabilities are, and maybe with the collective energy of more people knowing, then they can maybe steer it in a different direction. Or again, to simply prepare yourself to deal with the idea that it's going to manifest, and therefore allow yourself to be of service and be of assistance to those who may go through it in a negative way, and therefore be of service to them to bring them out of it in a more positive ending or conclusion.
So it's almost like you can prepare for that particular disaster, I suppose. And then at the same time, that also teaches you how to maintain being at the center of the cyclone in a sense,
Yes.
the eye of the hurricane, so that you maintain your balance and your neutral posture while at the same time recognizing that this may be a reality that's going to manifest.
Yes, because many people may have believed that they required that idea. And if it's not something you necessarily need to experience directly, then you can be something that's a stable influencing to help them recover from such experiences in a helpful way, in a positive way.
So, these questions have to do with waking up from a dream and coming back to the physical body. There's a transitory experience that we'd like you to explore, and also why it can sometimes take time to feel resynchronized with and grounded in the body and the personality.
Yes.
So, I guess they're asking you to explore what is this transitionary process of going from sleep into wakefulness?
Well, again, Different people will experience it in different ways, depending on their relationship to the idea of the transition from spirit to physical reality experience. Of course, many people who experience the idea of spirit or astral realms and out of body experiences get very used to it very quickly because that's your natural state. You remember who you are. You feel more expanded. You feel more loved. You feel more supported. So many people will have a little bit of resistance or a little bit of sluggishness, lowering their vibration again to reclaim the idea of the physical dream, to re-experience physical reality. And therefore it can require a little bit of time because there might be a little reluctance to give up the freedom and the expansion that you experienced in the non-physical realm. It's not unusual, but again, most people are willing to play out the theme that they chose, even if it is a little bit slow or sluggish to reconnect to that idea, even if there's a little bit of resistance or reluctance to do so. And that can be the reason for the slower transitions, whereas some people, depending on what they experience in the non-physical realm, might jump right back in, might snap right back in because they're so eager to continue with whatever it is they played out or planned out in the non-physical realm. It depends.
So it could also reflect the idea that if physical reality is very challenging right now, the idea of waking up into it may have resistance to that.
Yes, you experience a lot of this or hear a lot of this with what you call near-death experiences, where the person is out of the body, so to speak, for an extended period of time and gets used to the idea of being an expanded spirit and remembers who they are and how it feels and so on and so forth. And then you find that sometimes when they are resuscitated, brought back into the physical realm, a lot of them can actually experience anger for the moment at being so restricted again. But again, they usually bring with them the knowledge of an experience that will benefit them in life, and they will usually apply that and get over the anger relatively quickly.
I have heard of people who get quite depressed after that and go through a lengthy process of
Yes.
being depressed.
Yes. But again, the idea is that they may not simply be made to understand that they were given a gift that they can bring back and apply to the physical world. And they may simply be dwelling on the idea that, oh, I'm back here again, and now I have to go through this and do that. So their focus is important in terms of allowing themselves to know that more often than not, when you visit, again, the spirit realm, which is your natural home, your natural state, if you do return to the physical realm, there is a purpose to that. And if you focus on the idea that you've been given some information that can actually be of great benefit and service to your world, then it won't necessarily be experienced as depression.
Um, what is, mechanically speaking, the difference between sleep, coma, and anesthesia for consciousness?
Well, sleep is a reconnection to spirit and a recharging, in a sense, of the physical realm. Remember, the physical reality isn't real, and the way you know that is it has to be maintained. It decays. That which is real doesn't decay, it doesn't degenerate, it doesn't decompose. So sleep is for the purpose of recharging, in a sense, the batteries of maintaining the concept of physical reality as an experience. Now, a coma will usually be for the purpose of just regenerating the physical form itself. It will allow you a long hibernation that will allow for certain repairs to occur in the physical form. There may be a connection in spirit in that sense, but not necessarily bringing back with it the idea of any information that would alter the path of your life once the physical body is regenerated. Anesthesia, on the other hand, is something that puts you into a suspension that in most cases will prevent any kind of cognition from occurring, so that it's more like you just sort of skipped over a track. So that one moment you were conscious and then you were not, and then the next moment of consciousness leaves a gap, in a sense, in your life that you barely feel. And again, it doesn't mean that you weren't out doing things, but it doesn't bring back with it anything that's pertinent to add to your life per se, at least not consciously.
So, but some level, you do remember what's happening to you. Like, for example, if you go under anesthesia to have a a tooth removed or something like that. You may not have a memory of the
Yes.
event. However, some level of you does, and the
Of
universe
course,
records,
course,
right?
of course. And you will know all of that when you're back in spirit and going through a life review. You'll see every single second.
But
Many
it's
things you
at
may have
that,
forgotten or never even knew occurred. You will experience every single second of it, at least as an observation, if nothing else.
I see.
And you will know what you were doing during that time.
So back to that idea of process of going into a dream state and coming out. I know that our scientists have documented the different stages of going to sleep,
Yes.
and particularly that stage where you seem not to be able to move. It can happen either when
Yes.
you're going in or coming out of a dream, right?
Yes. You're fixing yourself in a certain vibrational state. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons. Of course, as we said, a lot of it happens sometimes when you're shifting into a different dimension because you're no longer really controlling your movements as a physical being, and therefore your body remains rigid. So again, this can serve a variety of purposes. It can act as a buffer for a transition from one state to another. It can simply be representative of the fact that you want to make sure that you stay and remain in a certain state for a variety of reasons while you're out doing something else. Again, it can be for a number of reasons.
And this person was saying that they made the decision to become vegan.
Yes.
And then once they did that, they started having amazing dreams, like tons and tons of dreams. Is
Yes.
this common that diet will affect your ability to remember your dreams or what you experience?
The choice to change the diet is a reflection of a change in energy already within your consciousness. It's just that now, because you have made that shift to a higher frequency within yourself, you simply no longer have the urge to eat things that you would consider to be of a lower, denser vibration. So it's not that the vegan diet affects the dreams, it's that you've already gone to a higher level that promotes those kinds of experiences, and the vegan diet is a reflection of the change you've made within your frequency.
Okay. Yeah, it's
So
always
yes,
good to remember these are all reflections and
all
they
reflections.
seem to be driving it, but no, they're actually
They're reflections of a change that already exists. Now, that doesn't mean that the foods are not lighter in frequency. Of course they are. But again, that's a reflection of the higher frequency that you've already made within yourself.
Can you explain how we shift through the frames of physical reality while we are dreaming? Do we continue to shift through the frames when we are unconscious, or are there special parameters for our unconscious selves?
You are always shifting whether you know it or not. That's just the fundamental nature of the structure of existence. Because there is only one now moment. And anything, in any way, at any time that you experience as a difference between one moment and another moment, if you can perceive the idea of a difference, you've shifted. So it doesn't matter whether you're physical or non-physical. It's just that the time frames operate differently. Some are faster, some are slower in terms of how you perceive the creation of time by the shifting of your consciousness. That's all relative. But there's always a shift, always a shift. The only place that has no shift is the unbroken homogeneous one that has no experience or awareness of itself. But from all that is, all the way down, everything is shifting. That's the nature of its existence, because there's only one moment in which to experience anything. Therefore, you have to experience the same moment from a different perspective to notice any kind of a difference of any nature whatsoever. So shifting is automatic, not to make a vehicle pun.
Um, as at a spiritual school, I was awoken one night with a ball of light and the sound of a bird and breath and a piano in my room. How are visions or experiences like this different from dreaming?
Well, they are, in a sense, to use a word, intrusions from the dream reality into your physical awareness. So, in other words, there's a kind of a bleed through or a leak through, which means you have sort of diminished the separational barriers between physical and non physical reality. and are experiencing bleed-throughs from other realities and other experiences that you may be connected to, but usually shut out of your physical life.
And is there a meaning to this vision, or is that possible for you to give any insight on that?
Well, again, it can be representative of connections that you have that inform you in this life. So let's say the idea of hearing a piano, maybe connecting to a very musical life, and the idea that the vibrations, the frequencies of music may be of some assistance to you. It may be a soothing energy for you in this life, or it may be something that inspires you to be more creative. It depends on the person.
How can we dream of you? How can we communicate with you in dream form? And is there something that would help us achieve this more easily?
All right, well, again, more often than not, you will most likely connect to the entire frequency of my people, my world, my reality, rather than a specific individual other than your own counterpart or future self, which is more likely. However, if you remember any conversations that we have had, or remember any time that we have communicated with any of you, remember the vibrational feeling, the frequency that you felt, even the timbre of the channel's voice can put you in a state where you are more easily connecting not only to my collective vibration, but to my vibration to some degree as well. Now, again, it's not always important to connect specifically to me, but you can certainly use the specificity of your interactions with me, specifically as an individual, to connect to whatever you need to within our collective vibration, including, again, if you have a counterpart there. So don't insist that it has to be me, but you can use the memory of these experiences and the tonal vibrations of the frequencies that we give off in order to connect to whatever you need to that is a representation of our reality. Remember, no insistence.
This question is, you've said that you do not dream and you don't sleep. So do you ever get bored with the experience of consciousness itself?
First of all, I said we do not sleep. We do not dream in the way that you do because we are always dreaming. So no, there's no boredom. We're constantly walking through multidimensional experiences of different kinds of dreams, including physical reality. So we didn't mean that we don't dream at all. We simply don't dream the way you do, in the sense of disconnecting from the physical world, so to speak, or shutting out your focus of the physical world, because we're always awake and we're always dreaming.
So do you miss sleeping and being unconscious at
No.
all?
First of all, the change in my society happened even before I was born, so I've never slept. So there's nothing to miss.
And but you have other connections that tell you what sleep is like. For example, when Darryl is sleeping, is it easier for you to connect with him and communicate with him in dream state, or is it easier just direct communication?
It depends on the type of connection. It depends on what's going on in the channel's life. In general, yes, it can be easier because the channel's physical consciousness is set aside to some degree. But that doesn't mean we haven't communicated and can't communicate, and doesn't mean the channel is not consciously aware of our communication even when he's awake, especially after 38 years of experience with us. He's gotten used to it. So sometimes the communication can be there, and it's like he drops into a kind of a daydream. So he understands how that feels, and he understands what that experience is, and he recognizes when it happens. But again, yes, in general, it can be a little bit easier when he is asleep.
And like that time, as was shown in the First Contact documentary, of when he experienced, I guess, in a dream state,
Yes.
where you were coming off the ship and then you were eye to eye.
Yes, that happened in a slightly shifted, altered physical reality or quasi-physical reality, which is usually where our communications take place when he's asleep.
And it was designed to show him how your frequency is in relation to ours as physical beings, and the amount of clarity I believe you would need to have in order to maintain your own persona in your presence.
Correct.
Do do you all use any kind of permission slips for getting into other states of consciousness?
If that is necessary, it will synchronistically arrive and is a very fluid and smooth experience with no real need for a request or a decision to be made consciously about what those permission slips might be. Because again, everything is interacting, interpenetrating as a multidimensional dream in our waking state. So if a permission slip is needed, it is simply there. Now, you could say that our spacecraft are a type of permission slip because they are a crystallized physical symbology of our higher minds, and we communicate telepathically with the craft. And you could say, therefore, the craft is a permission slip because ultimately we don't really need the craft, but we also maintain the craft not only for a permission slip for our purposes, but for your purposes and other civilizations who would rather and prefer to make it make more sense to have open contact by seeing an extraterrestrial arrive in a spaceship rather than just popping into your living room unannounced.
Although for our initial contacts that many people may have one-on-one, wouldn't popping in be more likely to happen than somebody showing up on a ship?
Not
Or
necessarily. Again,
not
it depends on the person, it depends on the theme, it depends on where they're at vibrationally in their path.
So it could be either one in terms of the
Yes.
contact experience.
Absolutely.
And it could even just be auditory, right?
Absolutely. And it can even be just like what we're experiencing right now.
Oh,
This is a
contact.
form of contact.
It's so much fun.
Yes, it is.
If you all don't sleep, why do you have day and night cycles on the planet? Is that for other beings or?
Well, that's just simply the nature of the planet. And remember, a long time ago, we used to sleep. That doesn't really change anything about the natural cycle of the planet.
What use does dream interpretation serve for a first contact specialist? When people dream of you channeling through a body like Darryl or myself, do the human channelers also gain the experience of the dream?
Yes. And it can be a way to practice the idea of bringing higher frequency energies and making connections telepathically to different beings. Remember, you do a lot of things in your dream state as practice for what you will ultimately experience in physical reality.
So if a person is having a dream of Darryl channeling you and they are remembering that, that is also something that Darryl can tap into and experience or get benefit from?
Well, it depends on if he needs to do so. It depends on if it's relevant for him. The channel has been told many times that he appears in people's dreams and that they have conversations with him. So, does he need to know that? Maybe sometimes he does, and maybe sometimes he doesn't. It depends on what he needs and what's relevant for him to know. That doesn't mean he's not active and interacting with other people in the astral realm from time to time that they may remember as a dream. And it brings the energy of us into play with them because the vibration in the astral realm would be very similar to our vibration as you experience it in this channeling. But again, does the channel always need to know that? No.
And since this reality isn't real and we make this shift daily to go into spirit and into the dream state,
Yes.
how do we better consciously exit this reality to control what occurs to us in this reality from above? Or would you define our existence here on Earth as a bubble reality?
We can define it as a bubble reality. It's an interesting and convenient way to talk about your particular universe. But that's again just an arbitrary label. If it works for you, use it. Now, the idea, again, of leaving the physical reality permanently, which I believe is what was being asked, is again, you have your own timing. You will leave when you're ready to leave. You will leave when you're done with the theme that you chose to explore, unless you decide to explore a different theme, which is now possible in your physical transformational reality. But most of you will have set up some circumstance where you will simply leave when it is time to leave, when you're done with what you're doing, with what you're exploring, like anything. And again, if you're always curious about when that time might be, as we have suggested before, you can always lie down on the floor, you can close your eyes, you can say, I'm ready to leave. I'm done with what I'm doing in physical reality as an experience. And then if you can count to 10 and then open your eyes, you're not ready to leave. You're not done. Because it should be that easy to leave. If you are done, you would leave.
Wait, does that mean you can program having a peaceful transition when your time comes?
Why not?
How
And
would you
again,
program that?
well, again, clarify everything in your life so that there is no fear-based beliefs remaining, so that you don't have to believe that there's any suffering needed or anything like that. And sometimes you will know that many people, just before, a split second before something happens that might actually kill them, will already be out of the body.
What about those people who are loved and have really good lives and everything, and then at the very end, they have an extremely difficult transition into spirit, painful
Again,
experiences,
there's a
etc.
reason for everything. And it may have more to do with those that they're leaving behind in physical reality than it has to do with them. So again, as always, case by case, person by person, there's no one general, one size fits all to those particular kinds of experiences.
And I'm just thinking of the hybrid children.
Yeah.
What's a good way to know if you're having a hybrid child dream? What are some symbols that typically show up in the dream?
Well, this is a large subject and it can take many forms. Perhaps if you have a dream literally of a hybrid, that would be obvious. But if you also see animals in nature or nature spirits in your dreams that seem particularly mischievous, it doesn't mean it is a hybrid child, but it can be one taking that form to have some fun and play around with you. But there are many other ways in which you can perceive that idea, and too many to go into at this time.
There is one where people see like a jar or something with a being inside of a jar. Is that?
It can be a representation of the hybridization chambers that they are gestating in once removed from the womb. And therefore it could be a calling card that hybrids will use. But again, it depends upon the hybrid child.
So if a child was in that state or stage of development as a hybrid, and you're there as in the dream state, you can communicate with that being at some stage similar to human fetus that is inside the body?
Telepathically, yes. Just as in what you call post-hypnotic regressions, you can take a person back into the womb and they're communicating telepathically with many different things.
Do these fetuses have the capability of communication right away, or do they have to reach a certain stage of development?
The communication can happen right away, but that simply may be coming from the spirit itself rather than through the fetus. If the fetus is not developed to the point where telepathic communication is possible through the brain, then the communication telepathically would probably be coming directly from the spirit that hasn't really fully connected with the body yet.
I see. And do all hybrid children speak English, or how do they speak to each other? Do they have other languages?
Well,
when
they
first come
speak
here?
telepathically, but they are learning some different languages that exist on your planet in order to blend in ultimately. But telepathically is what they use mostly among themselves. They do practice different languages and have a lot of fun with that, especially when they get something wrong. They laugh a lot.
Will they have names when they come here, or do we give them names?
It can be either. It's up to them to choose. Most of them will choose names from nature. But again, some of them may allow the adults that they meet to name them. It depends. Again, these are personal things. It depends on what they are attracted to do.
And the age that many of the children will be when we finally meet them here.
There will be exceptions, but most likely the concentrated range will be somewhere between 7 and 13.
And as a 7-year-old, though, they would be much higher functioning than a 7-year-old in our particular
Well,
species.
they will be much higher functioning than a 7-year-old used to be on your planet, but many 7-year-olds now being born on your planet are extremely high functioning.
Yes, we have noticed that. It's amazing what some of the kids can do now.
Yes.
I've noticed that some people are unaware of the different frequencies the 5 hybrid races normally vibrate at, and they become confused when they're hearing that a general interaction with Sasani beings is not appropriate right now, but only interactions with grays is possible. And can you summarize what the typical vibrational levels are of each of the 5 hybrid races and compare that to present day humans?
Yes. Well, we're not going to go into numbers, but we'll give you a general curve. The idea, again, is that the grays themselves, being hybrids, are still operating on a relatively low frequency. The frequencies got higher with the next version of the hybrids, the Mizani, and higher still with our civilization, the Sasani. But then it was recognized that the vibrations had to go down somewhat, or at least be altered in a certain way that became more compatible with humanity at a certain level when humanity reaches that level, in order for the blending to take place that would allow Earth to evolve into the 6th hybrid race. So it kind of went up, and then it kind of went down, but not exactly down as you understand down. It simply was altered in a way, flavored in a way, that would allow the 4th and 5th hybrid races, the Shayayel and the Yayayel, and of course the Shalanaya, to still exhibit high frequencies, but the high frequencies that would be compatible vibrationally with evolved humans when humans are ready to have open contact with them. So you kind of see a peak and a decline, but not a decline in the normal sense, an alteration.
The decline doesn't mean that they start thinking negative thoughts, basically.
Correct. It's more of an alteration that is done in order to make them more vibrationally compatible with interacting with humans during open contact.
And you mentioned that Sasani children are born through the parents going into a meditative state and then forming an energy bubble, and then the being is created.
In the overlapping bubbles, yes.
Yes. When will humans be capable of this kind of procreation?
About 1,000 years.
Okay.
Give or take.
Oh, I know. And I meant to ask you, when you were talking about the vibrational states of the hybrids, since possibly the Pleiadians would be the first that we would have contact with,
Possibly.
what would their vibrational range be?
Well, again, it's high, but it also exhibits the same kind of alteration that we just described, so that they make themselves more vibrationally compatible. In other words, their vibration normally is very high, but they don't show you all of their frequency. So the idea is they make themselves more compatible by sort of closing doors on some of their frequency when they interact with humans. In much the same way that coming through the channel this way only represents maybe 5, 10, at the most 15% of my total vibration. So we make an alteration that makes us more vibrationally compatible, but the idea of being face to face with us would not allow that filtering to happen in quite the same way. But the Pleiadians are willing to do that because they are more closely related to you as your kind of genetic cousins.
Is there anything you could tell us about the Andromedans?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up in a minute here. Here's one question. You had mentioned that unconditional love is the frequency of existence itself.
Yes.
And you've said creation is only slightly more positive than negative. And does the negative polarity exist only in an incarnate experience?
No, it exists on every level. Again, only in the one where there is homogeneousness and no experience, no awareness, no brokenness, so to speak, is there none of the idea of the experience of positive or negative or neutrality. But in all that is, instantly, it creates the idea of the polarities and the neutrality becoming the trinity of positive, negative, and neutral. It exists on every level. Now, how you experience it is very different. And you don't have to experience negative things on certain higher levels, but you become more aware of the possibility and the probability of all the different ways that negativity could be chosen. You just don't choose it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist as an option. Look at the yin-yang symbol. Always remember that. There is the light side and the dark side, but in each, there is a drop of the other, because the other is always accessible. No matter how far you go into the darkness, there's always a drop of light. No matter how far you are into the light, there's always a drop of darkness that is accessible to you. It doesn't mean you have to experience it, but it's always a choice.
Well, on that note, it's really good to know that, I guess what you're saying also is, if there is any dimension of time in your experience, then there's polarity, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that it's, what is the level of consciousness, the highest level of consciousness that experiences polarity?
All that is.
Ah, I see. And how does that conform to the ideas of angels and those levels of consciousness?
Well, angels, as we have said, are kind of like the first reflection of all that is. And that's why you have the story of the angels of light and the angels of darkness. They are the first story, the first reflection beyond all that is, that expresses the concept of polarity, or contains it at least. And therefore you have, shall we say, ensconced that idea of polarity even in the angels, because you talk about light angels and dark angels.
So if a person thinks that they are experiencing themselves coming from a reality where there is no negativity, it's not that the negative does not exist, it's that it's not perceived, or it's not related.
It's not expressed.
It's not expressed.
Yes. It is validated for what it is, but not chosen or expressed as an experience.
So essentially, an angel or any consciousness level below that would not experience negativity, but has recognition of negativity.
Yes, unless they wish to experience negativity. It always can be chosen for a variety of reasons. And again, it depends on the level, it depends on the frequency, as to whether it is more likely than not that it might be available as a choice, such as in your own world.
Whereas in your world, does anyone ever choose a negative experience?
No, thank you. Not now. There used to be those experiences when we were first evolving, after we were created, but no, not now. There's no reason.
And so illness doesn't exist in your world.
Not anymore.
But does illness always reflect the idea of negativity, or
no? No. Again, please remember, you can use positive things in a negative way. You can use negative mechanisms in a positive way, just as you're doing right now. You're using a negative mechanism of limitation to limit your greater consciousness in order to have a physical experience. That's a positive way to use a negative mechanism.
So, and maybe one of the greatest lessons from all of this is that there's always a silver lining, and if you can find it, it will shift you to a positive state.
Yes, and there's always a dark cloud too.
And best to leave that one alone, huh?
Maybe, maybe not, because dark clouds produce wonderful rain.
That's true.
Thank you.
So it's all good.
If you look at it that way, yes. So.
Oh, and there was a request for a Halloween story.
A Halloween story. All right. We are going to pull this story from what you would recognize as the channel's future consciousness. In other words, it's a story that's in his consciousness that he hasn't realized yet and will write in the future. Of course, he will realize it now because we'll imprint it on him and impress it on him so he could write it sooner than he otherwise would have done. This is not an interference because these things are available to us through the channel's consciousness. And since it has to do with a story that he will have written, then we can pull it now because it is allowed to do so. This is called The Demon with the Sweet Tooth. Jack and Jill 10-year-old twins are made up like skeletons for Halloween. They have done this on their own because Jack is very excited about special effects makeup and has done a wonderful job making he and his twin sister look just like Day of the Dead skeletons. And they go around in their neighborhood collecting candy, and they arrive at the 13th house that evening, and a woman opens the door who is dressed like a clown and looks at them and says, "Oh, what wonderful costumes. Here is some candy for you." They very quickly say thank you and turn around and walk away because to them, clowns are even scarier than skeletons. And they continue on their way and arrive at the end of the block. And they look down the block and it is very dark. There are very few streetlights. And Jill says, "Well, maybe we should go the other way." And Jack says, "Well, our big sister, Rachel, has said that some of the best candy is on this block, so we shouldn't be afraid of that." And Jill says, "But Rachel should have been with us." "Yes," says Jack, "but now she is in high school and says that chaperoning two young children is less exciting to her than going to her parties, her Halloween parties. Ooh, big deal, big grown-up parties. So we are now on our own for the moment. So let us go down this block and collect some more candy." And so Jill reluctantly agrees, and they move down the block. They don't get more than maybe about 100 feet when all of a sudden a huge, scary, demonic clown shows up in front of them and howls at them on the wind, and they freeze, not able to speak or run. And the demonic clown with glowing green eyes reaches out and snatches away their bags of candy and devours it in an instant, and then belches and smells like a sewer and disappears. And it takes about a minute or two for Jack and Jill to be able to speak. And when Jack speaks, he says, "Wow." And Jill says, "Wow, that's all you have to say after that horribly frightening experience? Wow?" And Jack says, "Well, that was some of the best special effects I've ever seen." And Jill says, "You mean you believe that wasn't real?" He says, "How could it be, silly? Demons aren't real. I suppose you still believe in Santa Claus too, don't you?" And Jill says, "Well, if you're sure, well, how did our candy disappear?" "Well, it's a magic trick," says Jack. "You remember seeing that magician on TV make that elephant disappear? Well, candy should be easy peasy by comparison." "Well, I wonder who did that," said Jill. "They must have some amazing technology to do something like this." "Oh, yes," said Jack, "probably a hologram connected with some magician in disguise that we didn't see. Who knows? But that was a wonderfully frightening experience. Let's go down this block and see what else we can find." So they agree to continue now with empty bags, having to need to fill them up again. And again they go from house to house and get more candy. And by the time they have finished with the 26th house, again, 2 times 13, the demon clown shows up again, and with a horrible howl on the wind, snatches their candy away and devours it again, and belches once more and leaves, vanishes into the shadows. And Jack and Jill said, "All right, well, enough of this. We're not going to have any candy left if this continues. I wonder who's behind it and how they were able to do this again at the other end of the block. We thought maybe it would just be near their own house, but clearly they're capable of doing something like this no matter where we are. So let's test that, because I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because we need to keep our candy." So they pick up their empty bags and they go down the other side of the block, and again, after they reach the 39th house, 3 times 13, sure enough, the demonic clown manifests again and towers over them with its glowing green eyes and reaches out, but Jack and Jill react quickly and hide their bags of candy behind their backs. And Jack says, "No, you shall not have our candy again." And Jill says, "Yes, be gone, O demon clown." And they have a laugh about this because, again, they're pretty sure that this is just a special effect. But as they confront the demon, surprisingly, shockingly, the demon clown begins to cry. And as it continues to cry, it starts to shrink. And it continues to cry and continues to shrink. And it shrinks down and changes into the image, into the ghost of a 7-year-old little boy. And this 7-year-old little boy ghost continues to weep in front of them, floating in the air before their eyes. And suddenly Jack and Jill recognize the little boy ghost. "Josh Graves," Jack says. "But you died last year." "Yes," said the ghost, whimpering. "I was sick for a very long time. And I could never go trick-or-treating, and finally I died, never having experienced Halloween. And so I became angry and jealous of all the children that go around trick-or-treating and want to snatch their candy away, because if I can't have it, you can't have it." And Jack and Jill felt compassion for the little boy who had died. And Jill said, "I'll tell you what. Why don't you come trick-or-treating with us now?" "Do you mean it?" said Josh. "Oh yes, it would be great fun, because you can actually scare the people after they give us candy, because you are a real ghost. And that would be so much fun." Well, the little ghost boy stopped his sniffling and said, "Yes, I would love to do that." And so the three of them traipsed off and went trick-or-treating and received a lot of candy and gave a lot of scares. And at the end of it, Jack and Jill said, "You know, I have an idea. Why don't you come trick-or-treating with us every year?" "Oh, I would love that," said Josh Graves. And so finally he was befriended by someone living who could allow him to experience trick-or-treating and Halloween in the way it was meant to be experienced on Earth. And so in the meantime, he returned to spirit and felt the freedom that wasn't his until Jack and Jill had befriended him. But every year he would return, and the three of them would go trick-or-treating together. The end.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Yes, it is. And so maybe many of you this Halloween will befriend a spirit and go trick-or-treating together, knowing that they are there with you, whether you can see them or not, having as much fun as you're having, so that you can know you can always go trick-or-treating with the spirits on the other side. So now, all right, good day. Today's transmission has been titled, "Tell Them Bashar Sent You." And this will be, in some sense, a continuation of what we have done before, when we suggested that you take an illustration of either a hybrid or a gray that is provided for you to download in this transmission, and cut it out, blow it up, paste it on some stiffer background, cardboard or foam core or whatever you wish that allows it to be rigid. Blow it up to the point where the head of the image of the gray or the hybrid, from the top of the crown to the bottom of the chin, fills one of your typical 8.5 by 11-inch pages, and therefore allow the rest of the neck and the shoulders to be whatever size they will be by following that measurement. And once, as we have described before, it has been placed on a rigid background, then place that cutout outside one of your windows, or more than one, as if it is peeking through the window at you, to get used to the idea, as you're simply going about your daily business, of now and then, out of the corner of your eye or more directly, catching that image, especially at nighttime, peeking in at you, so that you can get used to the idea over time that there are interactions going on between those beings and yourself. And as you become more used to the idea of seeing them there, allowing yourself no longer to be startled by those particular images, and starting to relate to those images pasted outside your window as if they are real three-dimensional beings looking at you physically through your window. So again, you can get used to the idea that interactions are going on, whether you are aware of them or not. This technique, as we have described it previously in that transmission, will allow you more ability to accept that these beings are in your reality and allow you more efficacy at actually being able to perceive them, the real beings, as they enter your reality and observe you and start to interact with you. This is for the purpose of making sure that you can begin to experience now, from this point forward, those interactions on a more conscious basis, on your own terms, as equals, without fear, so that you can not only remember some of the encounters you've already had that you may have forgotten one way or another, whether they were suppressed by the grays or the hybrids, or whether you suppressed them out of fear, doesn't matter. The idea now is that as you develop more of an equilibrium between yourself and your vibration and these beings, you can begin to remember the encounters you've already had and can become more aware and conscious of any future encounters as well. Now, to add to this and continue this process forward to get you, again, more used to the idea of open contact, because now we are starting bit by bit to proceed toward the beginning of the window at the end of 2023 of open contact, starting slowly, bit at a time. But more and more of these kinds of exercises will be shared with you, suggested for you, to give you, again, more ability to experience open contact in a way that is beneficial to all, without fear. And so what we will now add to this exercise, which you can keep doing to get, again, yourself used to this idea, and especially now that some of your military officials have begun the first stages, small stages, yes, but the first stages nonetheless of disclosure, by validating certain videos as authentic of UFOs. This is the beginning, the very, very beginnings of opening up to disclosure that we exist. So let's begin to take advantage of that momentum by adding to the previous exercise of the cutouts peeking at you through windows, by now allowing you, when you notice them at any time during the day or night, face them, walk up to them more closely on your side of the window or the glass door or wherever you have pasted them so that they appear to be peeking in at you. Walk up to them, maybe at about a distance of, let's say, 3 feet. And once you are in that position and looking at them and allowing yourself to feel comfortable looking at them, allow yourself to say the following words. I see you. I recognize you. I invite you to invite me to participate more openly, more consciously, without fear. And I introduce myself to you as a friend of the messenger, as a friend of Bashar, as a friend of the hybrids, as a friend of the children who will come to live among us. And I am open in whatever way serves everyone best to participate in the ongoing program of evolution that will allow Earth to move forward and become the 6th hybrid race. I allow this on my own terms, in an experience of comfort, in an experience of love, in an experience of allowance on both sides. And I allow myself to come into more awareness, more conscious recognition, more conscious realization of the ongoing encounters in my life and the participation of all of my counterparts and connections and my soul, family, and spirit guides and higher mind in this endeavor. For all concerned with love and peace. You may write all this down. You may read it out loud when you are facing that image. And if you wish, at the end, you can add, this is up to you. Bashar sent me, and I am here. We will leave that part up to you. Remember to do this with no insistence, no assumptions, just allowance, bit by bit. You can do this once a day if you wish, twice a day if you wish. You don't have to do it more than 3 times a day, but we will leave that up to you. And it doesn't have to last any longer than the reading we just gave you. But be earnest, be open, and if you feel any trepidation or fear, that is all right. You can stop, you can adjust, you can breathe, you can relax, you can even stop and start again later if you wish. This is all about getting comfortable with the existence of these beings in your reality and getting comfortable with your existence in our reality. So that again, you are creating and building up a frequency that is representative of the third reality between the both of our realities, respectively. That will be the reality in which open contact will occur to the best of all concerned. So practice this every day if you wish, to guide yourself more and more into the frequency of open contact. And we welcome you in this exercise and in this endeavor. So tell them Bashar sent you. We thank you now for allowing us to deliver this next phase of this exercise to you. Have fun with it, enjoy it, relax into it, be creative with it, and just be yourself and keep moving forward. And in return for this gift you have given us, in allowing us to suggest this to you, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may begin with your questions and comments if you wish.
Hello, Bashar, and all of my great Esesani grandsons. Many people say your teachings and the teachings of Abraham are alike. However, I seem to find many differences. For example, they say that whatever you think and feel is what you attract. However, you say the beliefs are what generate thoughts and feelings, and therefore create a reality, one level above thought. When I used to listen to them, I was so obsessed and focused, monitoring 24/7 what I was thinking, all the time. And if a negative thought came to my mind, I was like, cancel, freaking out. However, you taught us that not only can we observe them neutrally, here and there, when they come, but that we have to, in order to face our fears and transform them and integrate them. You cannot transform what you do not own, as you say. And also, I was driving one day on a highway while listening to them, and I had a car crash. Nothing happened to me, thankfully. It was just the side of my car. But I was like, this shouldn't have happened while I'm listening to them, supposedly vibrating this high. So I wanted some clarity on those teachings. What's your true perspective about them? Thank you.
Different teachers have different ways of reaching different people with the translation of the words that come into your reality. There are people that gravitate to certain ways, certain semantics, certain words that are used to give them at least some understanding of the process. Other teachers may supply other aspects of it to give a different understanding, or at least an understanding of a different part of the process. Taken all together, you have a complete picture. But that doesn't necessarily mean that an absolutely complete picture or the same delivery will come through every single being that is a source of information. That's why it's so important for you in your evolution, as you change, as you grow, to pick the pieces out of any source of information that work for you and leave the rest behind. It may simply mean that you're now at a different place in your life where you need to hear things and do things in a different way. And therefore you gravitate to maybe one teacher one time and another teacher or another source another time, because you are piecing together from different sources what works for you to create the path of least resistance for who you truly prefer to be. So it's not so much the idea that there's any contradiction. You're simply looking at things from different points of view using different ways and methods that appeal to different people who have different belief systems and need to hear things and receive things in different ways at different times. Now, with respect to the idea of your car crash, there can be many different levels on which you can look at this. Number one, on a very simplistic level, you can say that you may have created for yourself an experience that on the most simplistic, basic physical level simply says, pay attention to what's going on when you're doing something physically, because you can get hurt if you're not paying attention. So on the simplest level, the most basic physical level, you could simply say it's a lesson of don't be distracted when you're doing something like driving a car. Otherwise, this is what happens or can happen. That's a very simplistic lesson on a very basic physical level. On other levels, you could say, all right, you were in a state of being where you realized that by being in that state of being, that no matter what happened around you, no matter how dangerous it seemed, you would emerge unscathed. And therefore, being on that level, in some sense, allowed you to experience a different reality than what you allowed the car to experience, proving to you that physical reality, in some sense, can be circumvented. And so that could be part of the lesson as well. So there can be many levels to this idea, but it is not always wise to assume that just because you believe you're on a certain level, that certain physical things can't happen. Because again, please remember, the basic concept is it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that shows what level you're on, what vibrational state you're in. So the idea is not that a car crash shouldn't have happened because I was on a high vibrational state. That's an insistence and assumption that doesn't necessarily serve the purpose of the experience, because it just demonstrated to you that just about anything can happen no matter what level you're on, because it's not about the idea of what happens, it's about the idea of what you do with what happens that really makes the difference in your experience of physical reality. So all these different things can come into play. It can be one or more or all of them, and it's up to you to determine what other lessons you can learn from having had that experience. But be open to the idea of not being insistent on what you think should or shouldn't be a reflection of the state you're in, because again, that really shouldn't matter.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you so much for this co-creation. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to speak with all of you as well.
I was surprised in your monologue. It's so playful.
Yes.
The suggestion, and also, you acknowledge that some people might be afraid to go in that way, but this playful way of approaching it, that must help us loosen. That must help us.
That's the idea, yes.
And I also, when I was a child, was very terrified of, I don't know why, I had an inexplicable fear of,
yes,
alien contact.
Well, that's because as children, when many of these contacts actually start happening in your lives, you have never been taught that such a thing is actually going on in your reality, and therefore you haven't been given the tools in order to handle it, and so you feel that when you are shifted to the different realities that are representative of these different beings you're interacting with, you feel out of control. Your physical mind doesn't understand what's going on because it doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And therefore, you feel out of control, and even to the point of going into survival mode, because the physical personality feels that when being shifted from the typical reality you're used to a different frequency of reality, it feels like you are being annihilated, that you're dying, and so you go into panic mode. So the idea of what we deliver to all of you are the tools necessary to incorporate within your understanding of how reality works, how these encounters are occurring, and give you the ability to calm yourselves and realize that from a higher level you made a choice to participate in this, whether you remember it or not. And thus you can operate within it more consciously, with more awareness, on your own terms, and experience something quite fascinating and joyful and creative and constructive as you remember more and more your willingness to participate in the evolution of the Earth toward becoming the sixth hybrid race.
But when you say the evolution of the Earth,
Yes.
You're also you're kind of describing our, because we're in our own reality, right? Each of us is in our own reality.
Yes, but you have a shared, agreed upon experience that you call your reality timeline.
Right. Got it. And so, I mean, now I'm really excited for this to take place. I can't believe, I'm so excited that it's even possible in my lifetime, potentially.
Yes, it is.
And my physical mind looks out there at the world and things it thinks it's noticing and thinks to itself, oh my God, we have to go so far between now and 2023 to be really prepared to have a
First of all, don't gauge that by everything you see. Remember that you are capable still of looking at people making choices that represent other realities other than the one you're actually in. Just because you can see them doesn't mean you're in the same reality.
Yeah, the glass wall effect.
Exactly. So don't necessarily include everyone that you see having to be at that point. It is sufficient that those that are ready at that point to begin to experience the first stages of open contact will be at a point where they're prepared to do so.
Okay. So is there a way to discern if something I'm seeing is actually relevant for me to kind of address, or it's just something behind the glass wall? I guess my highest excitement will take care of that.
Following the formula will allow you better and clearer discernment about what is relevant for you and what is not, yes. Of course, everything in a sense that you see is relevant. It just might be relevant in a different way. So in other words, it can be even as simple as seeing something you would say is not really relevant for your path doesn't mean that it's not relevant for you to use in the way that works for you. For example, seeing someone making choices that you don't prefer can add greater clarity to the choices that you do prefer. So even though the things they're choosing aren't directly relevant for you, the fact that you're capable of seeing someone choosing something you don't prefer is relevant because it provides greater background and clarity for you about what it is, by contrast, that you do prefer. So that's how to use what isn't relevant directly in an indirect way that is relevant for you.
And I guess also, if I see someone making a choice and it kind of triggers me emotionally, like maybe fear comes up, yes. And that's also an opportunity to look at what beliefs are.
Absolutely, and therefore relevant for you on that context as well.
Got it. And when I'm doing that, I try to look at my beliefs, go through the emotions to find the beliefs is kind of the way it seems to work for me.
Yes.
And but sometimes there are certain beliefs that just keep reappearing. And I know that I know that you've mentioned that sometimes there can be belief systems and yes. Other beliefs reinforce the other ones, but certain beliefs like I'm wrong, or I shouldn't exist. I know those don't make physical sense because it's arguing with life, as you've eloquently put it, but somehow they stay sticky. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else you can help us with. Or
well, all right. Well, again, the idea being that you may need to investigate more deeply what it is you're getting out of holding on to those things. Because that's the only reason they would keep reoccurring, is there must be a belief that says there is some advantage to this, some advantage to remembering this or recreating this idea. Now, it can be as simple as you saying, well, I do have a belief that if I don't keep reminding myself, I might forget and then fall into a regimen that I don't prefer. So in that sense, you might be using it for a positive reminder to keep you on track. Now, if you continue to believe you need that reminder, then it will constantly be there reminding you to always be aware that you could choose to go this way, but because of the fact that it keeps cropping up, you will never go that way. You don't have to keep doing it that way, But that may be one reason why you would keep repeating an awareness of something you don't prefer, because you might be using it as a guidance system to make sure you actually never choose that direction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so.
So I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm simply saying that could be one of the reasons. It's up to you to investigate based on what I just told you about the idea that there must be something you're getting out of it that you believe serves you. Whether it actually does or not isn't the issue. There must be something you believe you're getting out of it that serves you. And the more you investigate it from that perspective, the sooner you will understand why you might keep repeating that cycle.
I'm trying to ask my question that question now. And actually what comes is this belief that it's keeping me small so I'm not seen.
Oh, all right. And why don't you want to be seen? What are you afraid will happen if you are seen? Which is another question to always ask. What are you afraid will happen if you become who you prefer to be? So what's the answer to that one?
It feels dangerous, like someone's going to come get me.
Dangerous. Oh, someone's going to come and get you. Yes. How melodramatic.
It's true.
Now, this is simply the result of a misunderstanding of how frequencies work. Remember, if you actually are in the frequency of your true self, your passion, there cannot be, by definition, anything dangerous in that. If you suddenly feel that something dangerous might happen if you act on your passion, that's not a vibration of your passion. You're already out of the vibration of your passion to even think and entertain that something like that could happen.
I see. So the belief, the resistant belief has already kicked in.
Yes, because you are conflating and contradicting the idea of the definition of passion with a contradictory vibration of something dangerous happening to you, which, if you understand the pure definition of your true self, knows that that's not possible. You can only experience even the idea of the fear of something happening if you've already left the vibration of your true self, which shows you still have a belief that says it's better and safer for you to leave that vibration. Because you would know, just through the idea of understanding the physics of it, that you cannot experience what you're not the frequency of. So if you are the frequency of your true self and passion, then how can you experience anything that is actually truly dangerous to you? Why would you attract it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And again, at the same time, remember, that doesn't mean you won't see things that might symbolize the idea of what could be dangerous. But again, it doesn't matter what you see. It only matters what you do with what you see that makes the difference. And if you stay in your vibration of passion, you will always respond to what you're seeing, even if it's what you don't prefer, in a way that allows you to use it in a way you do prefer and get a benefit from it. So remember, being in the state of passion, your true self, doesn't mean you can no longer see things that are not representative of what you prefer. It simply means that you will respond to them differently, even if they still exist and are still perceivable in your reality. That's the measure of change. Many people on your planet confuse the idea that, oh, well, I'm on a different vibratory level. I should never be seeing these things again. That's not true. As you expand your consciousness, you don't become less aware of the negative. You become more aware of the negative, but you become less likely to choose it as your experiential reality. So the idea is, it doesn't really matter to a truly centered being what happens. It only matters to them what they do with what happens, because that's what makes the difference in their experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I know. That's why I said
it. Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting that the more we expand, actually, the more aware we become of negative choices.
Well, of course, because the idea of positive and negative and the center point permeates all of existence. Therefore, as you expand your awareness of more and more and more of existence beyond the physical, you're going to learn about more of the positive and more of the negative, as well as the center point in the trinity of neutrality and balance between the two.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bashar. Thank you so
You
much.
are so welcome.
Bashar, I am Xia from China. I'm so excited to ask you this question. You've mentioned that in physical and non-physical reality, the journey never ends. Could you share your perspective about some yogis on Earth leave the physical dimensions through their chakras and merge their energy into all that is? Is that the end of the journey? And if that's not the end of the journey, where does that energy go? And what's the point of the endless manifestation? Could you elaborate more on this? Thank you so much.
It is not the end of their journey, and it's not that you need a point to the idea of continuing manifestation. That's simply the nature of existence in terms of experiencing itself in infinite ways. What would be the point of no more manifestations? Would be perhaps another question that could be asked instead. The idea is that existence is constantly expanding in its experience of itself, which is all the different ways that all of you are creating new perspectives and experiences of the structure itself that never changes. So no, nothing is ever the end, because even when you experience what appears to be a merger with all that is, there can still be different experiences of all that is. So that never ends. It's just the nature of existence.
Hello, guys.
And to you, good day.
Good day, dear Bashar. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to interact with you and with your civilization.
It is again my passion and my pleasure.
So, there is this portal in a park in Bucharest, in Romania, where beautiful contact is already occurring. And then there is this portal in the Giants Playground in Montana. Do I understand correctly that interacting with that portal that leads to ancient advanced technology is a stepping stone towards open contact?
Yes.
Is there more that you would or could share about that?
No, because this is something that has to naturally unfold. People will gravitate to these ideas, these portals, these doorways and gateways according to what it is they gravitate to that is based on their own passion. And things will unfold naturally in the way that they need to. There is nothing more I need to say about it at this time other than follow your passion, follow your instincts, and engage in whatever way your imagination so desires to allow it to unfold in the most natural way. It will guide you.
Thank you.
Yes.
When scanning my energy, do you think that what I perceived on the way to work on March 22nd, far out in the field off to the side of the road, there was a giant portal flickering up?
Yes, or it can also be connected with side effects to different energy grids on the planet in a variety of ways. As you increase and expand your consciousnesses, your senses will become more sensitive to the movement and appearance of different forms of energy around your planet that are fluctuating all the time. There are different kinds of portals in different places, but sometimes the energy you may perceive may not be directly a portal, but maybe a side effect or a ripple from a nearby portal. You have to increase your sensitivity to these things to be able to tell the difference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could you tell me where I'm at in my frequency at this time?
I can, but remember, when I do, your frequency will go down.
Okay, thank you, then no thank you.
All right, thank you. Because again, remember, the need to know your frequency lowers your frequency because there's no need to know your frequency. The idea is just to move forward and act on your passion and follow the formula, knowing that as you do so, your frequency will constantly rise. Stopping to ask what the frequency is like being on a road trip and then stopping and wondering how long it's going to take you to get where you're going. But now that you've stopped, it will take you longer. You see the analogy?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm happy to tell you, but it doesn't really serve any of you to know that because it stops the flow.
Thank you. That is much more useful to me. Thank you.
All right.
I would love to extend my greetings to the Shalanaya, to the 13, to the Morning Star, and of course,
All right.
for whom my doors are always open. And I'm, very thankful for the visitors that have decided to show themselves yesterday on May 7th in the night sky for me and my family to witness.
All right. Well, greetings have been returned.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that the Shalanaya or the 13 or Morning Star would like to share?
Not at this time. You are missing nothing that you need that's relevant for you.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. I love
You are welcome. Thank you. Good day.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. This is Andra. I have some really, really exciting news. I made more contact with my elemental friend, and it was thanks to a piece of information that you gave me when we talked. So I was actually able to see her more clearly. During my last ceremony, she popped out from behind my left shoulder and flew right in front of me and up above into the light that was right above my head. And she actually hovered there for a short while, and I got a really good look at her. And she had dragonfly wings, and she looked like a hybrid between a human and an insect. She had like insect legs, but definitely a humanoid body. And I almost can't believe that this happened. I got a really good look at her, and I'm so excited. I can't even put it in words, but I'm sure you'll see it in my energy. And I would love to tell you the whole story. There's a lot more pieces to it. I would love to tell you the whole story someday. But for now, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because it was the information that you gave me that allowed me to move forward and have this amazing experience that changed my life.
First of all, again, all of you, please remember, elementals are not fixed in physical form. They can take whatever form they wish. And sometimes, to be of service, they will take forms that are symbolically representative of certain aspects of connections you may have in your own energy. So the idea is that obviously the hybrid is a symbol that you're connected to the hybrids in different ways, to the hybridization agenda. The insect-like appendages are an indication of interactions you've had with the beings that are referred to in the hybrid interactions as the mantis beings, which many people describe as insect-like. The dragonfly wings are kind of a similar interpretation for the idea that some of your energy is also connected to the domain of the non-physical entities, other dimensional entities that often, when they project themselves into your reality, are perceived as the beings you call dragons. So that one elemental was reflecting to you three different kinds of connections that you have created in your reality path in order to represent the journey that you're on and different aspects of it at different times.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So I have a question for you.
Oh, thank you.
So for me, one of the most exciting ancient symbols found in mythologies from around the world is the cosmic serpent, or DNA. Can you
Yes.
give me your interpretation of the archetype of DNA?
The archetype of DNA.
Yes.
It's the first template in which consciousness can express itself in physical reality. So it is the physical representation. It is actually what you are as a physical being. In other words, this idea of the person that you consider yourself to be, just to use a simplistic analogy, is the suit in which DNA, the DNA you actually are as a physical consciousness, has wrapped itself in so that it can navigate the idea of physical reality. So you, as a non-physical being, create a template pattern within your consciousness with the intention of experiencing the idea of physical reality. The first level of that experience, of that expression, of that intention, turns electromagnetic energy into a physical template pattern you recognize as DNA that contains all the information of the person you have decided to be, of the destiny you have decided to explore in the idea, the experience of physical reality. So it is the interface between non-physical and physical reality, the first expression, physically speaking, in atomic terms, subatomic terms, of the intention to experience physical reality, a crystallization of that intention in physical terms. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. So it's interesting because when I tap into the idea of DNA, the Oracle of Delphi keeps showing up for me.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that the first Pythia is the source of the phrase know thyself.
In some senses, it's an older phrase, but nevertheless, it has been translated and interpreted in different cultures in different ways, but with the same basic meaning.
Okay. It's also the message I received when I had a session with the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull.
Yes.
And it's also the phrase that you used in the meditation segment of the Council of 13 and the Crystal Skulls transmission.
Yes. It's one of the most important states of being, because the more you become transparent to yourself, the more you understand yourself, the clearer your belief systems are, the more you know yourself, the better discernment you have about what is and isn't relevant for your journey, your path.
There's so many different theories on how the Pythia was able to have her visions. Can you tell me a little bit about the first rituals associated with the Oracle of Delphi?
Well, first and foremost, there is in that experience a clearer understanding of how reality works, in the sense that everything is here and now. So the concepts of space and time were understood to be illusions. Therefore, just like dialing in a particular frequency to access certain information, all of which is accessible from every single point in existence, because everything is, in a sense, the same point from a different point of view, then the oracle simply understood all that was needed was the adjustment of the frequency to represent the knowledge that was required, and therefore became the frequency of that knowledge and expressed the frequency of that knowledge in translated terms that made sense for the culture. Does that explain it in the way that you were looking for?
Yeah, so she didn't necessarily use the gases from the fault line or snake venom or...
Well, I'm not saying that there weren't permission slips that could be used to aid and assist, but the basic understanding is what I just described to you.
Got it.
Because people can still use permission slips even with a basic understanding.
Awesome. So would you say, or could you give me some insight on why she's showing up when I'm connecting into the idea of DNA?
As I said, the idea of DNA contains all the information of your particular path as this personality, including the most probable and likely energetic connections you will make to other simultaneous beings that exist at the same time you do, whether you consider them to be in the past, the present, or the future, or what have you. The idea, therefore, is that DNA contains the frequency of the connection you have made, because the personality and the path that you're on determines that it would be helpful for you to have a connection to that particular individual in another time frame to aid and assist you in your exploration of your ability to change your frequency and download the information you need to guide you on your journey.
That's so exciting. Well,
this happens to simply be the particular timing in which that particular connection needed to stand out to you.
Perfect. Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much.
We thank you, and good day.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. My name is Martin from Illinois. I recently received a clairvoyant reading, and I was told that there are negative beings that intend to influence me, perhaps through the phenomenon called gang stalking or targeted harassment. I've come across the ideas that perhaps we were created to be harvested for emotional energy called Lush, perhaps there is a being called the demiurge, and archons that attempt to deceive us through channels and fake holograms of a tunnel of light, and angels and life reviews at death to trick us into staying in this earth matrix. And that our true home is the dark, empty void of creation. And my question is, even if we do create our reality here through our beliefs and our actions, and that a system of logic and evidence will appear to support that, How can we know if the whole basis of this creation isn't a trap for souls? Thank you, Bashar. Bye.
What a fascinating story. And that's basically all it is. The idea is not to give over to the outdated, old-fashioned ways of interpreting things based on fear-based beliefs. But I'll approach this from a very different direction. I'll give you some quote-unquote practical information about this, and I'll give you a philosophical approach to this idea of there possibly being this soul trap, as it's been called or referred to. First, the practical idea. If you will examine many of the reports of what are called near-death experiences or transmissions from spirits that have gone beyond physical reality, you will hear absolutely none of this from any of them. So that can be a demonstration that those that have already gone through the experience of physical death in some way, shape, or form and have either returned or communicated about it from the spirit world never mention such a story or such an experience as ever having happened. So that's one side of it that you can explore through your own research into those reports. But here's the philosophical idea and approach. What is the definition of a trap? A trap is something that only works when you don't know it's there. That's how you fall into it. So the idea that such a story exists and that you can actually be aware that there might be such a thing as a soul trap should demonstrate that there's no such thing, because if there really were, you wouldn't know about it. You would just experience being trapped, and that would be the end of it. So the idea is to logic yourself through this by understanding that if you know about a trap, what can you do? You can avoid it. Even if it does exist, you can avoid it by having knowledge of it beforehand. So change your vibration, and you will no longer be equal to the idea that there is a trap. But here's the irony. The trap, if there is one, is the story itself that gets people to believe that there's a trap. That's the trap, believing that there is one. Because then you don't see it coming, in a sense. You don't realize that the story itself you're being told, the story you're being told to buy into, is the trap. So, don't fall for the trap. Now that you know how traps work, don't fall for it.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So, you and other teachers often talk about the idea of continuity and continuation after this lifetime experience.
Yes, yes.
That we're eternal, that we always have more experience, that it never ends.
Correct.
And I wonder if after we die, we wake up out of time and space, how can we continue to have more experience? Doesn't that rely on time?
In some sense, yes. I'm not saying that you become completely timeless when you die. You can experience the idea of timelessness, but very quickly you allow yourself to experience some degree of the idea of time and space. It's just that in the spirit realm, it's far more flexible, far less rigid.
But then if we allow ourselves to experience the idea of timelessness, wouldn't we then after that have to experience time again? And wouldn't that rely on time in and of itself, because there's a first this and then that kind of situation?
Well, that's a very time-oriented way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the true simultaneity of existence, in the true timeless state, remember, there's no real experience in the way that you mean it, typically. So that's clearly understood, and therefore, in order for existence to continue to expand its experience of itself, there must be even a minimal imposition of the idea you call time and space, although it can be experienced in a very different way on very different levels that is going to be very foreign to the way you experience the idea of time and space.
That's interesting. So I'm getting the sense that there's kind of layers of...
Yes.
And that also, like, similarly, here in this Earth experience, we're experiencing the illusion of continuity by switching frames billions of times per second.
Yes.
And I was wondering, like, how are we experiencing continuity at all if we're actually projected into all of these frames at the same time?
Because you have agreed to play the game of physical reality, which means that even though you are projected into all the frames simultaneously, you don't allow yourself to experience them simultaneously.
That's
You have
interesting.
agreed to play by the rules of the game, which says you're going to experience one frame at a time, whether you already occupy all of them or not.
Does that mean that on a higher level, the whole thing's completely set up already, or is there still somehow wiggle room and free will in that?
There is wiggle room and free will because the structure itself is set up. The structure never changes. What changes is your experience and your perspective of the structure that never changes. And it's those experiences that allow existence to experience the sense of growth and expansion and change.
Okay. I'm also curious, and maybe this ties into that, and if so, I'll move past it. But Bashar, you often refer to Darryl as your past self, right?
For the convenience of understanding a certain perspective, yes. Obviously, we both exist simultaneously.
That's what I was wondering, because you also say that cross connections aren't eternal, they're formed for reasons. So I was wondering if there was a fixed relationship there, or if it's just a continuously created cross connection.
It is a continuously created cross connection that appears fixed to you because of the nature of your mentality looking at the continuity of the experience.
Interesting. And so lots of teachings talk about Earth as a school where we're kind of trying to graduate or complete all of our karma and wake up.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned way of kind of looking at it, and that's all right. But from our perspective, rather than looking at it as kind of a kindergarten in the way many Earth people do, it's really a master class graduating. Because you're learning to transform the idea of limitation into freedom, of darkness into light, of limitation into something that you can master and utilize to your advantage. So it's quite a strong school to learn from.
And is there an end game to it where we're trying to finish it, or is it more of like an open sandbox where we come to have the experience that's offered here, but we're not like stuck in it until we're out of it?
No, it's both. You can create your own cycles of beginnings and endings within it, according to your own plans and choices. And it is also something that is open-ended because eventually, when you have decided that you've learned everything you need to learn from this particular game, you'll move on, but someone else will decide that maybe they need to play this game for a while, and so they'll then enter the sandbox, even though you have determined that there is a beginning and an ending to the cycles of your experience of the sandbox.
So these cross connections that we form with other lifetimes that aren't ours, but we form connections with them for various reasons, is there an energetic bleed over, or do they affect each other back and forth in some way where like the energy from one comes into mine and I process it while they're processing some energy from my lifetime over there?
Yes, absolutely. It's an absolute multi-directional interconnected web.
Oh, cool. You run through my questions so fast. It's great.
Oh, I apologize.
It's okay.
Oh, all right.
One more. Do you know what we're going to ask before we ask it?
No. Sometimes. If it's relevant for me to do so, yes. If it's not, then no. Sometimes it is important for you to open the door so that we understand what it is that's important for you for us to focus on.
Okay, well, I guess I'll let go for now. Thank you so much for your interaction.
Again, it is our passion and our pleasure. Thank you.
Hey Bashar, I wanted to ask a question, and the question is about art. What is the highest purpose and the role of art in people's lives? And yeah, what's its functions? Is it just one function? Is it many functions? Is it worthy? Does it have a real value? Is it superficial? Is it profound? Is it needed? So thank you so much for answering this question about art.
It depends on how the art was created. Art is a mirror that allows everyone perceiving the art to see reflections and symbols of what it is they need to see if they are willing to look. So sometimes art can be created through the idea of superficiality or something that's more profound, but it also requires the looker to come from either a superficial or a more profound place in order to get out of it whatever they need. And that part of it is up to them. But it's a mirror that offers an opportunity as a permission slip for people to look deeper within themselves, their consciousness, the archetypal symbols of the collective consciousness. Anything they wish to perceive about themselves can be seen in different kinds of art that are done for different reasons, according to what the belief system of the artist might be.
Hello, Bashar. How are you? My name is Dali. I'm from Chile.
Oh, all right. Good day.
Thank you very much for this experience.
It is our pleasure.
When I was younger, I had an experience that led me to feel shame, guilt, and fear for many, many years. And as a side effect, I became more paranoid and vulnerable about interacting with other people and so on. Yes, and as a side effect, for many years, I developed this sense of vulnerability and paranoia with some other interactions.
Yes.
As fear, like, how can I explain this? I became more paranoid and vulnerable, and somehow irrationally, they get to link to this experience. So a month ago, I decided to work on this, and the reign of terror came to me. But now I see more clarity. But sometimes this anxiety, vulnerability, and paranoia feelings, they come to me, and I would like to know how to deal with them.
Well, you have to always start with what you now believe to be true about yourself in any given situation, because you cannot experience any emotion whatsoever if you don't already have a belief that you're buying into as being more probable than any other belief, as being true for you. So what beliefs do you have that would generate feelings that you're talking about?
Yeah.
What are they? What are they? What do you believe is true?
That someone would say something to me that I will feel vulnerable and more guilty and more ashamed that I have done before.
Why? Why would what someone says make you feel that way if you didn't believe it was true?
Because I guess the fear of guilt or feeling guilty.
You're talking in circles. You're talking in circles. You're saying that I am afraid to investigate the belief because it's going to make me feel more guilty, but the belief is what is making you feel guilty to begin with. So what do you believe you are guilty of?
Actually, for making a mistake to hurt someone.
Like what, for example?
I don't really want to talk about it.
Then I can't help you directly, but I can help you indirectly.
Okay.
You said it was a mistake.
Yeah.
That means you didn't intend to hurt them?
No.
All right. Then why are you punishing yourself for making a mistake? Have you learned from making the mistake that you don't want to do that again?
Yes, I did.
Then if you have learned the lesson, why are you still in the class learning the lesson over and over and over again instead of moving on and applying the lesson that you've learned and then not making the same mistake?
Yeah, so I guess I went into that belief, and then I realized that I was afraid of rejection, actually.
All right.
So I've been working more on self-love.
Yes.
And now it's better.
All right.
So much better. I see with way more clarity.
All
it's just
right.
sometimes I still feel this little anxiety, or maybe it's kind of like there's a little bit of emotion that still lingers, but now
that's fine. That's fine. Just keep moving toward the understanding that you are worthy, that you are deserving.
Yeah.
Love yourself more and more, and understand it's all right now and then to make a mistake. It's not the end of the world, because if you're willing to learn from it, then you will improve. You will become a different person that will then behave differently in the world toward others. There is no reason for you to feel guilty about that process. It's how many people on your planet learn. So just go along with it. As long as you're willing to learn from the mistake, then there is no reason for you to feel guilty for having made the mistake.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I know.
Now it feels so much better. I think synchronicities brought into my life many of the answers.
Yes, of course. That's how it works.
Yeah, indeed. And it's just sometimes just a little bit. I feel like scared of going out sometimes, but
At that moment, then stay with that. Don't go by it. Don't rush past it. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Use that moment to find out what beliefs still remain within you that would create that anxiety. That's what that moment is for.
Perfect.
All right?
Perfect. May I ask you, is there any kind of affirmation that can help me open more that space?
That's up to you. Because affirmations are nothing more than permission slips that you give yourself to give yourself permission to change. So whatever you're attracted to use, the reason you're attracted to use it is because it will work for you.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I've been meditating. It's been so much better. I just had that main question that helps me so much, Bashar.
All right. Well, obviously, in many ways, you're doing just fine. So the only thing we would suggest is don't be so hard on yourself. You don't deserve it. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good day.
Thank you so much.
Hey Bashar, this is Michael from Tel Aviv, and I'm happy to be speaking with you. My question has to do with lucid dreaming. You once gave us a permission slip technique on how to wake up in our dream state, and once we do that, we can ask to be taken to the template level reality and change around some agreements, change around the stories we believe we're living. So my question is, if I manage to do that, can I remove all the negative beliefs that I might still be holding on to and wake up the next morning into a reality that's a lot more representative of who I am, of what I want, that is more true to me? Or will that shift be too much for my physical mind to handle? Will the change be too big? Will I recognize the reality once I wake up? So my question really is, what is the best way to utilize the ability to lucid dream once that ability is acquired? Thank you and good day.
You can wake up into a reality that is certainly more representative. You will not necessarily eliminate all of the processes you might need to go through in order to create that reality that is more reflective of your preference. Obviously, you would be able to handle it if you did it because you would be equivalent to that reality. Therefore, the idea that you couldn't handle it would be contrary to that reality. But visiting the template doesn't mean you remove everything. It doesn't erase the idea of the general collective agreement of the game you're playing in the earth physical reality game, as you say. But you can change certain things as long as they don't eliminate processes you believe you actually need in order to experience a deeper appreciation of the new reality that you're creating. So yes, you can change it to some degree. That doesn't mean you can just change everything, because again, that might be another way of saying you're attempting to avoid things that you actually need to experience in order to really create that reality in the way that truly works for you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Oh, great. How are you?
Perfect. And you?
Very good, thanks. My first question is in regards to parallel universes, changing past and changing futures.
Yes.
As far as the changing past, why would jumping from frame to frame change the past? It's the past and our choices that brought us to the present.
Yes. However, remember that if you actually become a different person, which you do, anytime you make any change at all, you're jumping into a different frame. So let's look at this from a space-time perspective logically. Because you create the idea in space-time of continuity or cause and effect, you think that what you went through made you the person you are today. And in a sense, that's true. However, when you finally decide to change, that new person needs a past that may be more logically the path that created that person. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, let's say, well, let's say I took a picture in the past and I go and look at it, it's still there. Even though I've
No, it's still here.
It's still from there, is right.
No, it's not. It's from here.
Yeah. Would it
You're
change?
creating an idea of a picture that you're looking at in the present as if it actually came from the past, but it doesn't. You're creating that picture in the present. And you're making the continuity assumption that it comes from the past. It doesn't.
So could that picture change in the present?
No.
No, okay.
That picture is that picture. This is one of the things that we address when we talk about the concept that you humans refer to as time travel. There's no such thing in the science fiction sense that you usually portray it. It's all about parallel reality. So we usually use this analogy. Let us say you are 10 years old and someone takes a picture. Now you have that picture, you put it on the table. There's the photograph of the 10-year-old. Now you become 30 and you invent a time machine and you say, I'm going to go back into the past and I'm going to take a picture next to my 10-year-old self. And so you have that experience. You get in the machine, you go into what you think is the past, you go and find your 10-year-old self, or at least what you believe to be your 10-year-old self. You stand next to that particular 10-year-old, you have someone snap a picture. Now you have a picture of the 30-year-old and the 10-year-old, and you put that on the table when you come back to the present, so to speak. But you still have both pictures. There is a picture of the 10-year-old by himself and a picture of a 10-year-old with a 30-year-old, which obviously by definition, since both pictures exist, must be a different 10-year-old. So you just went into a parallel reality where you've taken a picture with a different 10-year-old that happens to look like you, assuming that it's actually you, but actually has nothing to do with your history.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, I will.
Because both pictures simultaneously exist on their own. Each frame is its own frame. You don't change the frame in a movie film strip. You go to another frame to change the image.
Yeah, I get that.
All the film strip frames all exist. You set your course through them with your consciousness as to what frames are relevant for you. So that's why we're saying when you change yourself, different frames may be relevant for who you now are. And you may not remember that you've changed the past to make sense of your present new self. It may always seem to be the past you've always had, but you don't actually know that. It just looks that way.
Okay.
So 5 minutes ago, the you are now, or the you used to be, may have had a completely different past than what you remember as the past right now as the new person you are. But it will organize itself through continuity in physical space-time to make itself seem as if, oh yes, I've always had that past. But that's not necessarily true.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. Thank you.
All right, play with it. You're welcome. Thank you. Yes?
One more. When did all that is think of another? When did it occur and what was before?
You're asking a space-time question. Remember, space and time are subject to all that is. All that is not subject to space and time.
So it was just always there.
Existence only has one quality.
To exist.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's not even an always, because that's a space-time word.
Yeah.
It just is. Does that help?
It will.
All right. Have fun with it.
I know this is a question, but do I have time for one more question?
Yes.
What does Jesus Christ's life, death, and rebirth represent for us here in physical reality? I'm also having a little trouble interpreting the dying for our sins part.
Yes, that is kind of, again, a human interpretation based on a fear-based belief system. The idea was to actually show you, if you go a little bit beyond the idea of the death, what came after.
Life.
Right? The idea of the resurrection, yes?
Reincarnation?
Resurrection.
Would it be translated to maybe reincarnation?
not in the way that most people on your planet mean it, but the next transmission we're going to give next month of your time is all about the idea of reincarnation and how to look at it differently. So we can explain some of that later. But the idea right now is the whole process of an ascended master or a learned being going through that process on your behalf or on everyone else's behalf was to simply demonstrate the idea that while the body may seem to be impermanent, you as a being, as an entity, transcend time and space, and therefore no death is actually the end of anything.
Yeah. Okay, so the dying for our sins part, is that...
Let me retranslate it.
Yeah.
Yeshua went through that process and allowed the idea of the physical representation to seem to die in order to go beyond and show that a resurrection is the continuation of consciousness and the continuation of life beyond death, that you are greater beings than that. And the so-called dying for your sins simply means, let me show you that you have fear-based belief systems that are limiting you from understanding what I'm about to show you.
Okay.
So, in other words, the fear-based belief system is what is colloquially being referred to as your sins, because they place limitations on your consciousness that don't need to necessarily be there.
Yeah, okay.
Does that help?
It does.
All right, then thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Bashar. This is Jethro from Amsterdam. My question is about what is called spiritual bypassing. It is a term that pops up lately a lot in my experience in the so-called spiritual communities. And it states that people are using knowledge or spiritual knowledge and teachings in a way so that they don't have to work on themselves and not have to face what's happening on their inside, and basically to stay in a constant positive state or in a elevated state. My question is, as this could be also an exploration of the higher self or a spirit, is there even such a thing as spiritual bypassing? All right. Thank you, and goodbye.
In the way that has just been described, no. Because the very idea of attempting to avoid looking at certain things within the self that might be necessary for the evolution of your spiritual growth is a contradiction in terms and a completely different energy state. Therefore, the moment that someone avoids, they are actually going down in vibration into the negative states. Therefore, they're bypassing nothing. So the idea is, yes, you can have moments where you're focused on the idea of your relationship with the higher mind, and it may not involve in that moment needing to look at something within yourself that you're attempting to avoid, but it can give you what you need to be better capable of handling that when it comes time for you to look at those things. But avoiding looking at those things is completely missing the point of having actual spiritual growth.